Montessori method of education. This method is proven to be very powerful and successful in raising children. That is why we would kindly like to get your attention to this training. In this training, we specifically aim to reach out a group of people consisting of early childhood school program developers, childhood specialists, preschool teachers, as well as parents. Upon taking this training, readers and viewers will be able to learn the following outcomes. First, I will briefly touch upon the history of methods. Then I will talk about the Montessori method of education in terms of approach and give you some details. And then I will present you its differences with the traditional approach, traditional method of education. And following that, I will make you understand the 10 essential parts of this method with deep explanations. Later, I will focus on various Montessori mobiles and as well as activities and provide you the details of designing a Montessori home for the child. In the final part, I will set up the rules and talk about emotions, how to teach them to your child, such as praise, labeling, and eventually provide you the daily routines in this method. Okay, let's first get to know Dr. Maria Montessori and how she ended up developing this kind of education. Actually, she was born in Italy and one of the first female doctors in Italy. And what she did was, first of all, she started treating poor women and children in her clinic. And then there was one thing that she realized, which was very important, that the children were picking up breadcrumbs, and which she attributed to the fact that they had suffered from sensory deprivation. To solve this problem, she started to educate children. In this context, she understood that the medicines and medical education are inadequate for these children. So these findings suggested her that there needs to be something else. And therefore, she gave her full attention to the philosophy of education, psychology, and as well as anthropology. Because of her excellent works, she had a lot of attention others and was later especially invited by the Italian state to open a nursing home in Rome for those children whose parents were working. Finally, in 1907, she opened Casa dei Bambini, in English it is called as Children's House, to provide education to low-income children. It did not take so long, indeed, for her to be known internationally and heard. Montessori method of education has been very popular and has spread to the United States in early 1900s. And later, Dr. Montessori continued her research in this field until her death in 1952. So now, I think from now on, we can understand a little bit more about the philosophy of it, and we will focus on the philosophy of this education in this method, and learn how this method varies with the traditional method of education, because this is going to summarize the pillars on which this method is based on. So from philosophical point of view, the question becomes how this method is different from the traditional ones. So let's get into this a little bit more. On the contrary to the traditional method, the freedom which is accomplished through self-discipline and order is a must in Montessori philosophy, because Dr. Maria Montessori believes that the children needs freedom to develop physical, intellectual, and spiritual paths. Other than this, there are many rules in the Montessori philosophy that will also benefit the child. For example, the child should not take the presented activity outside the playground, or they should not eat by standing up, and as well as they should not harm others. Furthermore, Montessori materials, what about them? How they should look like, where they should be placed. So that's also important. Montessori materials are placed on the shelves in order from the easiest ones to the most difficult, so that the child works at their own pace with the material that is relevant to their immediate interests. This material. Now it is time to present her the subsequent material into the training. this is a learning process that is surely dependent on the child, and it is a phenomenon that's going to be based on the child's characteristics. So while in traditional education, only the adult affects the child, but in Montessori education, the child, the adult, and the environment are in more dynamic relationship. The adult or the teacher is in the position of an observer, regulating the environment by constantly monitoring the child and does the necessary adjustments. Dr. Mario Montessori argues that the purpose of the Montessori education is not to fill the child with the real information, but rather to support his natural desire to learn, independent of place and time. That is why Montessori education and philosophy is not only applied in schools, but also in our homes. We should give our children specificities and as well as set limits even in our home so that they can make discoveries. Having said all these explanations as an introduction into this method of education, we can now concentrate on the 10 principles of this method in the coming training.